Oh, you blanked out there for a minute. All right. Hi, Bri. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome to the Noble Pen Podcast. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. All right. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you begin writing? What inspires you to write?
Sure. So I have kind of experience in writing as a marketing professional in the construction, architecture, and engineering world. So I write, the proposals that win us the job. And I'm talking anywhere from a couple 100,000 to a couple 100 million. So I was really nervous with my writing abilities when I first started. But after designing our own websites and, writing people's resumes and these proposals, I got a confidence in writing. So that's where, I love to tell the story, and it's always been for other people and other companies. So earlier this year, I had brain surgery and it's great. It wasn't cancer or anything. So it was just phenomenal story. I'm writing another book about that whole thing, but
we're going to have you back on for that one.
Yes, absolutely. So earlier this year, I had brain surgery, and it made me realize I need to take a big step back from the corporate world, let my body heal. And I've been asked to write this first book for a few years. So it's a nonfiction, metaphysical, paranormal story.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
be willing to give as much as you're willing to, obviously.
Sure.
Without obviously giving away the majority of the story, of course.
Yeah. So I had a near-death experience, which is the big push to write this book. And I had that in 2017. And I went and kind of tried to figure out what had happened and just tried to understand. And I found IONS, which is International Association for Near-Death Experiencers.
Near-death experiences, right.
Yep. And so I went to a conference. I met a bunch of great people. I started going to these small groups with local authors, and I'm still in touch with a couple of them. And they're like, "When are you writing your book? When are you writing your story?" I'm like, "I don't have time. I'm in corporate America."
Right. Okay.
So the 1st of November, I declined an amazing position, top of the corporate ladder. It was my dream job, but way too much.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I guess it's time to write my book. So yeah, I put all my energy into writing and editing and publishing my first book.
And you said this was in early November?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's only been out a little over a month then?
Yep.
Okay. And how are you marketing that? I mean, is there some specific type of marketing strategy you're using because it's nonfiction, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So nonfiction is very, very different than fiction, I feel.
Absolutely.
It's and I did write towards a specific, I still wrote, for a specific genre as a specific, group of people.
Right.
So right now I've like I said, I've built websites for part of my career. So I've built my own website. I have a YouTube trailer on it. I've been, trying to blow it up on social media. Trying all the marketing tactics I know for companies and other authors. Like I said, I'm still friends with a couple of the authors I met that really inspired me and kind of took some tricks from them. I'm also entering in an award for it, just to see if I can win an award, because that's how you go huge in this genre.
Course. Yeah, for sure. Has any of these avenues seemed to work for you better than other ones?
I think I've also been on a podcast for kind of the paranormal, supernatural. I talked with
cool.
Jeff Mara right after my near-death experience. And I recently joined one of his live sessions, live streams, and told his audience about my book. So I think the podcast, the interviews, and that has been very helpful. I'm also working with libraries. so they've got author spotlights and different things like that. So I think
Good idea.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody mention that one yet. So
author spotlights. Oh,
right.
yeah. It's especially, I'm in a small town right now. So they rely on authors to come to them. So I don't have to fight off a lot of competition. I just went to an author spotlight at our library for Ghost of Montrose, which is where I'm at right now.
Oh,
and
wow.
You know, nonfiction, true stories, local authors. And I'm like, how do I do that? And how do I get it? And Absolutely. They, you know, sell their books there. They tell their friends and their friends, and a lot of word of mouth is kind of what I'm relying on right now.
Okay. All right. I'm assuming that, considering your situation, your story is based on a situation you went through yourself. Then would that mean that you probably didn't experience much of a writer's block kind of thing? You kind of can you just go in and dig right in? You didn't really have to create anything, right?
Nope. It's my whole metaphysical paranormal journey. And you're right, because I didn't have to come up with anything. It's all nonfiction. It's all my own experience. I just had to pull them from memory. And what was difficult for me is switching from the technical writing into, you know, I write technically and I tell a story very briefly. Okay. And luckily, my sister and my mom have been amazing people to help me through this process. They're like, yeah, they still want a story. You still have to get them interested and involved, because I didn't want to throw in too much that was irrelevant and this and that. So instead of going crazy and throwing in everything in the kitchen sink, I was too minimalistic. So I had a lot of help trying to build the storyline. Even though I knew the storyline, I knew the basic, I had a great outline. I mean, you could tell a business person wrote it at first.
Okay.
Yeah. But now I've gotten, you know, several reviews on it that, you know, it's a great read. It's not long. It's not a huge novel or anything, but it captures you. It's crazy. It's a crazy ride, but it's a short ride. So kind of like a roller coaster.
Okay. All right. Tell us about how it made you feel writing this. Did you go through lots of emotions? Was there a lot of emotional writing there? Was there certain times that you felt maybe a little too emotional considering the circumstances that maybe you couldn't write at that moment, or?
So with the first book, not really. I think after.
So there's going to be a sequel to this, you're saying?
Kind of. It's not the paranormal, but it's the neurological condition throughout my life that led me to brain surgery.
That led you to it? Okay.
Yeah. So the first one, the one about the metaphysical journey, I wanted to separate them. They're two very different audiences and two very different paths and experiences. So I thought they'd do better as two separate books. Okay. And at first, it would have been hard for me to write back in 2018 because I still didn't really believe it had happened. It's like, am I crazy? You know, it was.
I'm sure if you've done research yourself, being an author of this genre, there's tons and tons of people that have had these experiences. Yes. You just happen to be one of them. Doesn't make you crazy. You know what I mean?
Yes, thank you. It was actually listening to a brilliant, well-renowned neurosurgeon when he told his story of his experience with his brain. Like, he was in a coma, there was no brain activity. And as a neurosurgeon, he's like, I should not have experienced what I experienced. I shouldn't have remembered anything. And he described his journey, and it was so similar to mine. I'm like, light bulb, I'm not crazy. This happened. This is real. Right. This guy is telling my story. So that's kind of when I sank into it and I wasn't so nervous about critics anymore. And I really became confident in the story itself.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah. But my next one, that one is definitely more difficult to write, way more emotional. Definitely sometimes where I have to step back and say, this is going to take a little bit longer, and that's fine. Just need to process this one.
It's kind of like a prequel, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Let's dig into the writing techniques a little bit, just because I've really had very few nonfiction authors on the show thus far. Tell me something that you learned that like you wish you knew when you started, that you learned throughout the process. Like, hey, this is how to write nonfiction. This is where I need to dig in. Do you have any information to give to the viewers on that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I would have liked to have more research up front instead of trying to fill it in after or along the way.
Yeah.
All the information was up here, but when I needed to put it down or where it would fit in perfectly, I didn't have it. So I'd have to then go back and find it. So I would have preferred, a much better log or system for it. So that was a big one. The outline was extremely helpful.
Who was it?
The outline.
Oh, okay. Yeah. A lot of people mention that. I'm an author myself of a couple of books, the fiction books about like haunted towns and stuff. And I've never used an outline. I mean, I've heard of it, but a lot of people swear by it. So it seems like maybe I want to go that route the next time I sit down to write.
And the best advice I heard for outlining is don't write big full sentences or paragraphs in your outline, just ideas you want to hit, and then you can go in and fill it in while you're writing. Some people get stuck because they'll do an outline and they'll write paragraphs for each part, and they just get all too crazy, and they want that outline to be perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. What was the hardest part for you about at least writing this first book? I know you said the second one's a lot more difficult. What was the hardest thing for the first one?
Trying to figure out what information was relevant, how to tell it in a story form. Just kind of, I guess it was my first book. Everything about it was hard.
Okay. That's fair enough. Absolutely. All right. Did you have any friends or family members read it before you sent it for publishing? And how did it make them feel? Was there a great return on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, my mom and my sister have been instrumental in helping me through the process. My mom would have inputs and insights of things that I had forgotten about. And my sister was really good about reading for the story, she gave me great input on how to grow the storyline, not just, the basics of this happened, but, takes you through the movements of how it happened, what I was feeling, get people really captivated. So when she gave me that insight, I think that changed the whole trajectory of my book.
Okay. Considering the captivation that you just mentioned, how did you go about like your chapter length? How did you know like where to put what and how to keep that all together?
So I love that question. The way I did it was I kind of looked back, since it is my life story. I did, how would somebody else tell this? And, what is longer, and, what part of the story is longer and needs its own chapter? What do I need to condense? So before I was 10 is, all together. 10 to early adulthood is all together.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then my NDE is such a big part of my story. That's its own chapter. The near-death after effects, all the crazy stuff after, is its own chapter. And then kind of where I'm at now.
That was pretty crazy for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost certainly have to get your book now because I have to read this. I don't want any more from you, but I have to read it for myself, Okay. If you could pick the brain of an author that I want to say, I usually say any author for people at this time, but for you specifically, if you could pick the brain of any author that has wrote specifically about what you wrote about, who would it be and why?
PMH Atwater.
Okay.
I don't know how old she is. She's got to be in her 70s or 80s. She is a spunky little spitfire who has written several books. I'm thinking 5, 6, maybe more. And they're all just jam-packed full of information. all about near-death experiences and other metaphysical
And
things.
she's had them herself, or like you have? Or?
Yeah, she's had them herself. She's very, very educated. So I would love to crawl into her brain and
That's
just
awesome.
pick it apart.
You never know. Maybe you'll get the opportunity someday, right?
I got to meet her once, and that was awesome.
Oh,
So,
that's cool.
yeah.
That's very cool. Okay. When you were writing this book, I imagine that this was a therapeutic thing for you. Like it kind of helped you, I'm assuming, right? As it would most people. I'm sure it helped you deal with, your feelings, your after feelings. You want to go through that with us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, with it being kind of a subject I know a lot of people aren't on board with, because of religion or
Why do you
personal
think that
beliefs.
is?
Just a lot of, people have different views of the afterlife and God, and,
Okay.
is it a spiritual happening? Is it chemicals in the brain? I mean, I've heard all sides,
Okay.
agnostics, atheists. Even Alexander, the neurosurgeon, was an atheist before his.
Okay.
So just knowing all the controversy out there, as well as I was raised in a very Christian household, and our church was like, no ghost, no demons, no near-death experiences. You communicate with, or you have clairvoyance or intuition. It's the devil's work. So growing up, that's where, my dad and the church would come at me this way, but yet I was having all these other experiences.
Mhm.
So after this near-death experience, it was just, colliding, what happened and what I've been taught and raised. So
Right.
fighting through that and finally deciding, this is my truth. And if I'm going to go public, I might have to, it's going out to the world. And sure enough, my dad's read it, and a lady from my old church bought it. And so it's just like,
How did it make your dad feel, if you don't mind me asking? Did he find out things in the book that he didn't know prior to reading the book?
I'm pretty sure he did. We're supposed to sit down and talk about it. It took him a little while. He's really busy, so it took him a little while to actually, be able to sit down and read it.
Okay.
And then he recently got a cold, so he really wants to sit down and discuss it with me. I have no idea what that means, but I'm sure he learned some things.
Okay. All right. Do you plan on writing anything else like after the sequel that might be like fiction or something else, being as how you got yourself into writing doing this book?
So I don't know if I would decide to go into fiction. Probably I've really been enjoying these nonfiction books, and I'm still in a journey of, self-discovery and learning, a bunch of different mechanisms for anxiety and OCD and just racing thoughts and stuff.
Right.
So I'm learning a lot of meditation and breathing and different things like that. So maybe self-help books down the road. I don't know if that's the right category, but still in the nonfiction realm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The self-help books are actually fabulous. I've talked to a couple of people that are going to be on the show, and that's primarily what they write, is just self-help books. So I heavily believe in them.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I think, there's definitely going to be more to both of these books down the road as I learn more and I grow more and I develop more.
It could develop into its own self-help book off of what you experienced.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't want to write a self-help book until I figured it out myself. So they might never happen. I don't know.
Makes sense. Okay. You said you did research, correct, before this. Do you want to tell us like what resources did you connect with? Which ones do you think were better than others? How did you know what was credible enough to use for your book and what not, if that makes sense?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the research that I started with was research I've been kind of doing over the last few years. My mom's also been doing it because she was vital in helping me realize what was going on with my near-death experience. So, there's some kind of they don't seem so credible when they're writing or talking. It's just the way they present themselves. They could be, I don't know, just I didn't get that feel. But, these doctors that have their own experiences and they write about it and they have these scientific proof, like, hey, here's where I've got the scans that I was dead,
Oh, okay.
So a lot of that kind of research just to, I don't have any of those medical proofs or anything. So relying on kind of theirs to say, hey, there are medical proof. I just don't have it for myself.
Yeah.
And then some other stuff. If I Google something, I will cross-check it with a few different sites. That way, I'm not just relying on some crazy Google search.
How do you go about doing that, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. I'll use an example. I just posted to my book's Facebook page about this shadow creature or entity that I saw as a child. And it's a slender top hat caped shadow. And it showed up in our basement. My sister, her friend saw it. I saw it multiple times. Even a few
girls. You guys all
girls
seen it at the same time?
No, different times. Same house, different times.
Okay.
Even a few girls from my church saw it, and we, still very hush to a lot of people because it was taboo to talk about. It wasn't until closer to my near-death experience that my mom reached out to a demonologist, and he's like, this is actually a very well-known dark entity. And so I went and Googled it because I wanted to see how many people have also seen this figure. So I did some Google searching, and enough cross-checking got me to this website. No idea if it's, credible or not, but what it said was, so similar to everything else I've heard about this. And it was the most interesting article I read. So I just linked it to there. It's not really in my book, but it's kind of how I went about research.
Yeah.
But the Cape Shadow Man, and it goes by several names. He's seen all over the world, mostly appears to children, mostly in basements. So, it's just like tingles, and it's just more confirmation and more confirmation.
Right.
So,
it's one of those situations, right, where you got, I've used this analogy before. You got 10 people in a room, right? One guy says he's seen the ghost. 8 out of the 10 of them, you really seen something, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's really what you're focusing on there.
Yep, absolutely. So a lot of just cross-checking, and the more people or more sources that confirm this information, that's kind of the way I've been going about it. So it's really exciting. So my nonfiction story is not going to be your dull, I was born in Kansas and, cut corn and my grandma taught me how to bake an apple pie. It's gonna, it's full of demons, ghosts, angels, near-death experience, after effects, medical intuition. I mean, if you're not into it, like if you don't believe it's real, it could make a good fantasy story.
I was just gonna say it could make a good story either way then.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Was there ever any parts of the story, or really your story, I should say, like when you were writing it, that was maybe a little bit too hard for you to write at that time? How did you get through that emotionally? Like, was there any times like that?
Like I said, I've been trying to process this one for going on 6 years, is it? So this one wasn't too bad. The one I'm currently on, almost every paragraph, it feels like, because I'm still processing. This one, I think because I knew it's got a happy ending, and the first part is dark, then it's got this crazy event, and then the rest of it gets, happier and lighter towards the end, like a good book. And the one I'm currently working on, it's still so new into that big event that I'm struggling seeing past it.
Right.
Where this book, I can, I could see the end, and I could see all the good things come of it, all the cool things, and I processed and I dealt with. But a lot of it, it's just.
But it's tough for you to get to that point, to get to that mindset as you're writing it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I get there, it's a lot of, stepping back and kind of breathing and maybe, figuring out maybe where's the bright side, or, or just dive into that emotion and write that emotion, and then go back. And if it's too much emotion, tweak it.
Kind of play off of it in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Have you set up any book signings yet for this book, considering it's so new, or not yet?
I'm working on it. The library here in town is hopefully going to be my first. I've got a friend.
I wish I lived near you, because I would certainly go.
Yeah, I think, are you on the East Coast?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a friend on the Front Range of Colorado that's got a bookstore, and I was trying to get it released while I was still over there to hopefully have a book signing there. But I might, still see if that's an option and just head over. It's only 6 hours away. So.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Right. I'm still working on the, just the, oh my gosh, January is going to be huge. I see a lot of book signings and book readings and author spotlights.
Book readings, you said, like where you're going to actually read excerpts from the book to like a group of people, or?
Yep.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And how do you go about setting that up?
It's libraries and different bookstores will let you do it as well. Okay. And especially with this being nonfiction in the metaphysical paranormal realm, reaching out to those different metaphysical fairs and groups is a really good place for this one.
Okay.
But for fiction, I think they're all online though right now. I don't know of any. Once again, I haven't pursued looking into fiction. Right. But a lot of, author sharing. I don't know how successful that is for other, fiction writers, but these metaphysical groups, a lot of them do art and, different stuff like that. So being an author is kind of, there's not too much competition.
Right. Have you spoke to any other authors, indie authors rather, that have been through your same situation yet, or no?
Yeah. And there's an awesome lady. She's really busy. She just moved. She's setting up her business and everything, but she's been absolutely incredible for helping me on this path to, authorhood. She was a software engineer and had a catastrophic event in her life. And so she completely changed and went into this metaphysical, paranormal, authorship, speaking, helping, healing world. And so I really appreciate all the help she's given me, especially with her very busy schedule right now. But she gave me advice on self-publishing, different ways to market my book, just really, really good tools.
I feel like maybe if you connected with some more people in your genre and have written, it would create a bigger connection. It's kind of what I'm trying to do with the show here. You know what I mean? Yeah. That you could reach more people that way. So if I come across any other people that obviously it's a really niche market, of course. But if I do come across anybody else, I'll definitely send them your way. Maybe you could have a conversation with them. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all the help I've been given. I would love to help anyone else along their way. And, that very collaborative environment would be super awesome. So yes, please send them my way. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you want to show just like what the cover of your book looks like so the viewers can see? White Flame, 1048 BL. Can you tell us what that means? Absolutely. So my near-death experience, I was renamed. So other instances in the Bible, there have been a lot of people renamed from, their God. Yeah. Well, crazy part of this experience is I came back, I'm like, my name is 1048. And my mom's huge into gematria. And when she looked up what that meant in the Bible and how I had died in that whole process and the whole beginning part of my life to what I was renamed is just so mind-boggling and another huge sign that it happened. So I implore you to read the book and find out why my name is 1048.
And BL is just my initials, Bri Lafferty.
Right. And is this available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble?
Yep. Amazon, my website, Facebook, but Amazon's probably the best way to get a hold of it.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there any other information that you'd want to give to new authors, especially in your genre, before we wrap this up?
I think the most important part is getting your story down first, and then you could go back and, tweak it. It's different than fiction because, you might get, like you said, writer's block, and you're developing characters and plot lines and all this stuff.
Right.
Nonfiction, it happened, it happened. You just have to figure out how to say it. So I'd say get it all down first and then maybe go back if you need to.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Bri. It's been fabulous having you on the show. I would hope to have you back after your next book comes out.
Yeah, I would love to be back. It's once again nonfiction, but it's a whole different route of writing.
Right.
I'm actually co-authoring it with my mom, so that's a whole different elephant.
Really cool.
Yeah, so I would love to tell you more about that process once it comes out. And
But right now it's too early.
Too early, definitely too early. So
Right.
check out this one and see if you like the writing, storytelling style, and get your mind blown a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bri. I'll have this spun down and send it out to you as soon as possible.
Awesome. See ya.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye.